The most famous bridge on the railway, the bridge on the River Kwai, survives today. Its place in history secured by a Hollywood movie. But other remnants have faded away into the jungle. For all its fame, the bridge on the Kwai is little more than a gateway to a lost railway. This is the story of its rediscovery. Japan's only hope was to cut a railway through the virgin jungles of Thailand and Burma. It would be the most audacious engineering feat in World War II. But how would they do it?
This was hardcore engineering. There is no question it was first rate. It's that element of it is incredible. How could they have achieved it in the limited amount of time and the resources that they had? This is some cut rod.
A huge overhang here.
Must have taken huge effort to do this.
There were a few men buried here in rockfall, not large numbers. One of the funny little anecdotes here is that
as manager of war graves in Thailand and director of a railway museum, Rod Beatty has a passion to understand the railway. Over 9 years, he's walked almost its entire length, uncovering secrets that have been hidden for more than half a century. Whampoa Viaduct on the bank of the River Kwai is a working monument to wartime ingenuity and ruthlessness. The Japanese sacrificed the lives of prisoners and even their own men to build these trestles around a 200-foot-high escarpment. But Whampoa is the only example that's left on the railway of how the Japanese designed and built wooden bridges, and it's been heavily rebuilt since the war. So how were the original bridges really constructed? From Ban Pong, the prisoners would be force-marched to camps all along the route of the railway. The Japanese High Command had decreed that to finish the railway quickly, all 260 miles of it would be built simultaneously. Wherever possible, the Japanese planned the railway along the course of the River Kwai. But at one point, 90 miles upriver, the terrain defeated them. A sheer 400-foot cliff at Tampi gave them no choice. No bridge or viaduct could be built around this, so the railway would have to climb over it. Instead of an easier route on the river valley floor, the railway would need to be built on a long, slow gradient to a point where it could cut through the mountain. This point became known as Hellfire Pass. It's one of the most notorious places on the entire length of the railway.
Well, there's a drill hole there on the face, another drill hole in the face.
Look at this. God.
It's one of the longest and deepest cuttings anywhere on the railway. Deep in the jungles of Thailand and Burma, and cut off completely from the outside world, the prisoners had no idea how the Second World War was unfolding. In fact, even as the prisoners started work on the railway, the war was turning against Japan. In April 1943, a group of British and Australian prisoners began a forced march 200 miles north to Songkurai, close to the Burmese border. The march lasted 18 days. Those who survived the march to Songkurai were ordered to build a bridge across this river.
The really difficult work of here is men having to stand out in that current up to their chests, operating the man-powered pile drivers. Dozens and dozens of men pulling on the ropes. 1, 2, 3, drop. 1, 2, 3, drop. Hours, days, weeks of that. Of the 1,600 odd men who marched into this camp, more than 1,200 died.
All that remains of the prisoners' labours are the timbers used to support this shelter. Before the end of his war, American airman Frank Nelson had one more target to destroy. Bridge 277, the bridge on the River Kwai. Against a well-defended bridge built of steel and concrete, Azon bombs dropped from high altitude would be less effective. So instead, Frank and his crew devised a plan to fly in at treetop level and aim conventional bombs directly at the base of the solid concrete pillars.
February 13th, 1945, mission number 17. Our biggest day, Bridge 277, Kanchanaburi, Thailand. 4 by 1,000 pound bombs, low level, ship number 53. Four direct hits knocked out center pier and 2 spans. Only once to hit the bridge series.